Good morning, everyone. A recent CBS series, Crime Without Punishment, looks at the disturbing rise in unsolved murders in the United States. Jackson has experienced a spike in killings with more than 150 murders last year. About 4 in 10 of them remain unsolved. Chief Investigative Correspondent Jim Axelrod went to Jackson to see the toll of unsolved murders on the relatives of those who have been killed.
Everyone in this room who has had a member of their family murdered, raise your hand. When we started calling mothers who'd lost their children to murder in Jackson, Mississippi, word got around, and more than 30 people arrived for our interview. Put your hands up if you feel like you've had to investigate your own loved one's death. The pain in this room in Jackson was overwhelming.
They didn't investigate my case.
And more just kept coming, wanting their stories heard.
Even the detective when I talked to them, they hung the phone up in my face.
Willie Mack is himself a former homicide detective at the Jackson Police Department.
Where the ambulance at?
His daughter was shot to death in 2017. Hang on, how many years were you with Jackson PD?
24 years.
You had 24 years in, and when you call the detective investigating your daughter's death, you don't get your calls returned?
I don't get no call returned.
To understand better the depth of their suffering, we sat down with 3 mothers from the group.
My son, his name is Kenlon Thompson Jr. He was murdered April the 1st, 2021.
Zachary Ryan Robinson. He was murdered on April 29th of 2014.
Ryan, he was murdered November 26, 2020 on Thanksgiving, a day after my birthday.
Margie Allen, Danita Williams, and Lucinda Wade Robinson are talking about their sons, all younger than 22, all gunned down in the city of Jackson, Mississippi. Population, 153,000. Has there been any arrest made in either of these 3 cases?
No.
Not one arrest?
I was showed a picture of my baby on the side of the road. I was showed some information, and I was told to go solve my own crime.
Go solve your own crime?
And bring them the evidence, and I would take it to them.
In Jackson, the capital of Mississippi, the numbers are stunning. 156 homicides last year, one of the highest per capita homicide rates in the entire country. Do you feel murder is being treated differently here?
Murder is at the bottom of the totem pole. It's normal. A young black male is going to die tomorrow. We have 3 over the weekend. We can't get to you right now.
The whole system is backlogged.
James Davis is the chief of the Jackson Police Department. Does not solving homicide cases erode the trust the community has in the police department?
Of course, we tell these citizens the truth. We don't tell them that we can solve a case without the facts, you know?
Chief Davis told us Jackson PD's ability to solve murder cases depends on processing evidence at the state crime lab, which he says is overwhelmed.
I can use more police officers. I could use more homicide detectives. But if the state is backed up, the court is backed up, we will still have the same problem by developing these cases that we're already doing.
FBI research suggests homicide detectives should oversee no more than 5 cases per year. Jackson PD has 8 full-time detectives. That's enough for 40 murder investigations. Last year alone, they had nearly 4 times that number.
I don't think any police department in the nation can say that they got enough resources.
Jackson homicide detective Sergeant Kevin Nash works in an office where each desk is piled high with files. He knows that means victims' relatives aren't going to like the pace of solving their loved one's murder.
Sergeant Nash, I talked to him and he said, well, you know, a lot of y'all come down here and act like y'all children are perfect. I said, no. I said, first of all, I'm not acting like my child is perfect, but my child did not deserve to be killed in the street.
But Sergeant Nash says he and his colleagues are doing the best they can.
I'll be honest with you, when your loved one is killed, you can never do enough to solve that case. I call them back when I'm available. It may not be right then when they want to. And remember, if this was your child, you want immediate answers too.
I will always tell you that the Jackson Police Department can do a better job.
Jackson Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba knows all too well what unsolved crime can do to a family.
My brother was shot in the head in Jackson, Mississippi. So we're no friend of crime, right? And no one was ever arrested for that.
But points out his police department makes arrests in 6 out of 10 cases, above the national average.
I get the feeling no matter how often you talk about it, the tears don't stop.
No, no.
You just lay in bed at night and just cry all night, and you get up and try to fight more to get justice for your child. It's too much.
Turns out, 3 weeks after we visited, Jackson police made arrests in the case of Margie Allen's son, a year and a half after his murder. Jackson PD told us it was simply a long investigation and they just kept following the leads. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
All right, coming up, we're headed to the garden with Eric Lampkin, digging in the dirt next Sunday morning. All right, we're headed back to the garden this morning with our own Eric Lampkin, who shows us how to get our hands dirty.
Hi, I'm Eric Lampkin. We're back in the garden. Well, actually, this week we're not in the garden. I'm actually kind of at the edge of the woods here at my house. And I'm going to start off this week with a disclaimer, if you will. I am not a scientist. I'm a gardener. I am not a horticulturist. I am not an agronomist. I'm a gardener. So before you start firing off the angry emails about, you know, that's not how you do that, or that's not the scientific way to do that, or, you know, before you make comments on Facebook or call the station or whatever, just know, 1, I'm just a gardener. 2, I don't read the Facebook comments. Today I'm going to be talking about dirt, because gardening in and of itself is pretty easy. You've got 4 basic elements involved. You've got seeds, soil, sun, and what I call the 4th S, soaking. See, instead of water. You know, 4 S's sounds better than 3 S's and a W. It's easier to keep up with. You got 4 S's there. And today we're going to talk about soil. There's a lot of things you can do. You can deal with the soil you're dealt with in your yard or in your garden. You can use the native soil, as I like to call it. Or you can augment it with potting soil or topsoil that you bring in from other things. But you know what? You can also make your own soil. Takes a little time, a little patience. It can get a little stinky sometimes, depending. But it's what we call composting. And composting, at its roots, if you'll pardon the pun, is pretty simple stuff. You put stuff out there, organic matter, out on the ground or in a certain spot, and you let it decompose, and it turns into basically dirt. It can also be really complicated. There are people who have literally written books on how to do composting. It doesn't have to be that hard. Out here in our yard, it's pretty simple. This is our new compost pile, and you can see we actually have stuff growing in this. Just pile it in there. Stuff will eventually break down. When you need to turn it every so often. We do ours roughly on a weekly basis. Get in there with a rake and a shovel and basically scoop it out, dump it over, you know, move it from one spot to the other, get the stuff on the bottom to the top. That's mainly what you have to do. So, like I said, composting can be scientific. It can even be mechanical. They make various devices to make composting easier. One of them is this is actually called the compost tumbler. That's apparently a registered trademark, and it is a tumbler for compost. So you throw all of your material in here, be it grass clippings or food waste or whatever. You toss it in here, and then you give this thing a twirl, and you come out with dirt after a while. And the thing about this is, it works. It may not be the most efficient way of getting your compost. It might be if you use it properly. Because one of the things you have to do, of course, you load all your stuff in there, and you got to give it a few turns every day, like so. And yes, I'm not actually straining for the camera. This is legit, partially because it's on unlevel ground, but you got to do that. You know, give it a few good twirls every day, and it will help speed up the decomposition process. So we use the compost in our raised beds. We also mix in some other types of dirt as well. And one of the benefits of using compost is sometimes you get a bonus. And what you see right here, these two big squash plants, and these two tomatoes, and those tomatoes, and I think maybe even these ones in the pots, I'm not sure, all came up from composted dirt. So we poured the stuff in the bed. We planted the crookneck squash down here, and then all of a sudden this squash comes up, and we're like, we don't know what that is. We just know it's squash. We're now pretty sure that it's butternut squash. And it just came up out of the compost. Mother Nature gave us a bonus and made us some dirt too. So you know, every so often you get a little what does it Bob Ross call it? Happy accidents, right? That's why some people may say, why are you planting your tomatoes next to your butternut squash? We didn't do it. Mother Nature did, so blame her. We just hope they all grow together. And just remember, folks, if I can do this, you can do this.
You know, we're just glad Eric brings in some of the fruits of his labor to us for us to enjoy. All right, coming up on Mid-Morning, going off the grid. Vacations far away a little later on Mid-Morning. All right, welcome back. With the western United States experiencing a historic drought, 4th of July celebrations in some cities will look a little bit different this weekend. Danya Bacchus shows us how the wildfire risk has some places opting for another type of light show.
At the Alameda County Fair in California, the crew from Sky Elements Drone Shows is preparing to light the sky, placing 100 drones on their marks. When night falls, they take flight.
Do you think this is the way of the future?
Oh, absolutely. I think drone shows are going to become more and more common.
This 4th of July holiday, some cities are trading the boom of fireworks for the buzz of drones.
Drone shows don't have the noise element that fireworks do, they don't have the trash element, and they don't have the fire danger either.
According to the National Fire Protection Association, fireworks were responsible for igniting more than 19,000 blazes across the United States in 2018. In Klein Village, Nevada, near Lake Tahoe, didn't want to chance it and made the switch to drones.
We looked at the safety issues around fireworks. You know, I kind of look at the concept of lighting, throwing lit objects up into the sky. And is that the best thing to do at the height of the fire season?
Preston Ward is the chief pilot for Sky Elements and also has pyrotechnic experience. He says each show lasts about 12 minutes and the drones are programmed with a flight path based off a custom animated storyboard. The number of drones can range from 100 to 1,000.
Generally, our shows run between $350 and $450 a drone. So that's kind of the range, and it just scales up from there. So about a 100 drone show runs about $35,000.
For some, it's just the right price for wowing crowds with a safer alternative to a holiday tradition. Danya Bacchus, CBS News, Pleasanton, California.
There are thousands of pleasure boats and commercial boats along the Gulf Coast, but this summer, charter boat captains are dealing with the same problem as the rest of the U.S., high gas prices. Here's a look at local boat owners seeing how they're navigating these expensive waters.
High gas prices have many people in troubled waters.
We're just paying more at the pump every 2 days.
And it's not only affecting drivers on land.
The boat operators, of course, are having to work with the cost of fuel being twice as much as last year.
Boaters are also having a hard time keeping afloat.
If we don't know how high it's going to get, maybe the family's only going to take one vacation instead of two.
Officials at Captain Anderson's Marina in Panama City Beach say business has been different this year.
Business is down a little bit, but and that's expected. we're just thankful for the folks that are still coming down and having a good time with their families.
Officials say they don't sell gasoline at the marina for the boats, but they do sell diesel fuel, and it's costing more than usual.
It was around $2.75 last year at the highest point, and this year it's more than double that.
Some captains at the marina are drowning in expenses.
Now we're burning $1,000 every 2 days.
They've also seen business go down during their busiest time of the year, snapper season.
We went from our best spring last year to a worse spring this year.
We make the profit on these boats in this 60 or 70-day season we have each year, so we'll just make the most of it.
But there's only so much they can do.
We don't have a choice. This is what all these guys have done for most of their lives. We can't change it.
Waiting for a change, yet setting sail no matter what. In Panama City Beach, Sayona Kandwala, News Channel 7.
All right, if you're ready to get away and unplug, you're not alone. The popularity of going off the grid while traveling increased before the pandemic, but it has intensified more as Americans want to disconnect from virtual life and connect with those who really matter. Wendy Gillette reports on the trend from the Amazon in Brazil.
These are the sounds of the Amazon. A few hours after leaving the city of Manaus in northwest Brazil on a rainforest cruise. We're aboard Amazon Nature Tours Motor Yacht Tucano for a reduced rate. There's no cell phone service or Wi-Fi for most of the trip, which takes up to 16 passengers out for as long as a week.
Very first reaction is shock and concern, soon followed by deep relief, and people really enjoy having the opportunity to disconnect.
A recent survey by the luxury network Virtuoso found 92% of travel advisors say their clients are bringing health, wellness, and self-care into their trips this year. And 29% prioritize digital detoxing, even more than diet programs or beauty treatments.
They begin to appreciate more external things instead of simply, the internal echo that we all suffer with.
The Amazon trip takes unplugged travelers on guided excursions deep into the rainforest. Whoa! There's fishing for piranhas. Can I touch it? Yeah. Which become the night's main course. Amazon! There's also the opportunity to take a dip in the Rio Negro River, the largest blackwater river in the world. You don't have to trek somewhere as exotic as the Amazon to take a break from technology.
You can make any trip a digital detox, whether it's close to home or far away. All you have to do is turn off your electronic devices and make the commitment to separate from the world.
And whether you're choosing the digital detox or it's imposed by the remote location, the idea is to return renewed with a clearer perspective. Wendy Gillette, CBS News, the Amazon, Brazil.
During World War II, women helped save baseball. You remember the movie. Now one former player is telling her story, which includes a secret that was decades in the making. Here's Chris Van Cleve.
There's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in baseball!
30 years ago this weekend, A League of Their Own premiered at the box office. It was a hit. Inspired by the 1940s All-American Girls Professional Baseball League and players like Maybelle Blair.
If it hadn't been for the war, we would have never had our dream.
You were playing boys teams back in the 40s. You guys won.
Well, sure, some of them, yeah.
Amazon is now revisiting their story and exploring subjects not talked about in the 1992 film or in the 1940s.
There was queer girls that were playing baseball, and we had to hide it.
Blair was so moved at the show's premiere, she publicly came out at 95.
I think it's a great opportunity for these young girl ball players to come realize that they're not alone and you don't have to hide. I hid for 75, 85 years, and this is actually basically the first time I've ever come out.
That moment went viral. Now truly in a league of her own.
As long as I can stand, I can swing a bat.
Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Sunset Beach, California.
All right, when we come back, swapping cars and sharing toys. That story is ahead on Mid Morning. A popular idea that helps people make ends meet with small food pantries sparked a thought with one young boy. Janelle Bladu has this story from Texas.
I'm setting this up.
For 5-year-old Bo,
no, Dad.
Same goes there.
Racing Hot Wheels is
my favorite thing in the world.
So much so, his garage is full of them.
Most of them should be Hot Wheels.
It all started with a walk through the neighborhood.
I told my mom, you know how about those little free libraries? I said that to my mom, and I told her I wanted to make one, but for cars instead of books.
Take a car and leave one. Bo had the idea, Dad the tools.
At an early age, he was obsessed with Hot Wheels, and he came up with the idea, and we put pencil to paper and drew it up, and he helped me build it.
Next, Bo's free garage was open for business, and as owner and operator,
do you know how this works? No.
Bo tries to ensure every transaction.
Do you want any of these? Yes, I think I want this one. Okay.
His inventory is quite organized. He's even the salesman.
You even get to open up new cars that are in the package if you want.
Bo's free garage has been open for about a year and has done roughly 1,000 trades. He says if you want to stop by, he's open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Everyone can come all day, every day if they want.
It's a passion Bo loves to share.
They can take however many they want.
And for him, it's a new surprise.
I never know if I'll get a truck or a car.
Every time. In Houston, Janelle Blue to KHOU 11 News.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back to wrap things up. We always love to hear from you. You can connect with us through social media or over the email. We'll see you back here next time.